Good afternoon to everyone who is online so far. My name's Andy. I will be your host for today. I am just going to wait 30 seconds or so to see if we get more delegates, more attendees before we start. So get yourself comfortable. Hopefully, you've got a cup of tea or coffee next to you. I'll get a few more. Okay, well, we'll get going. We don't have a huge crowd today, which will work hopefully to your benefit. Welcome to this webinar. It's focused on building your cybersecurity career. Great time of the year to reconsider that, and hopefully you're all here to gain a little something to help you make some decisions for yourself and gain some insight. We'll look at the types of roles um, that are available, the market overview, and some of the credentials required to move into those roles. I'm Andy Johnston, like I said. I'm the Divisional Director for Training, have been for around 7 years with IT governance. Just on the IT governance note, you'll see just below the logo, we're a GRC solutions company. That is just a rebrand in progress. So from around August, September time, we'll be formally known as GRC Solutions. This is just kind of a transfer period. I lead the educational kind of element of our business. So training programs, coaching, any kind of upskilling programs for businesses and individuals. My background is predominantly in sales, operations, and about 8 years in education. Um, and Our kind of team and our business are really passionate about educating and supporting individuals and businesses to achieve and attain your goals. And hopefully we can help you a little bit with that today. Um, in terms of introductions to who else we've got Nikolai. Welcome, Nikolai. Nikolai is a specialist in 27001 DORA, business continuity management, a little bit as well. An experienced auditor and implementer, and worked in some great businesses, including financial institutions. So some good DORA knowledge, and one of the world's leading DORA specialists. So you can see his qualifications below. I won't read them out, but very, very qualified, as well as very experienced, which kind of ties into some, if you're thinking of progressing in your roles, you need qualifications and experience to boot. We also have Soji. Welcome, Soji. Soji is a cybersecurity specialist, probably a specialist in almost everything cybersecurity. I think the most qualified, um, or one of the most qualified cyber specialists in the world. You just keep gaining the qualifications, don't you, Soji, and sticking them under your belt. So, in terms of gaining qualifications and experience and how to pass exams, Soji is one of the best out there. And in terms of supporting careers towards things like CISO or any kind of cybersecurity focused roles, Soji is one of the key instructors we have and coaches, and has a vast array of experience. So welcome, chaps. In terms of welcome everyone else, before I kick on, I'm just going to jump to how we can interact. So today's session is going to be less kind of us talking as much in a teaching way. You'll get some of that. But we would like to see if we can get you to, we have a fairly small group to interact with us a little bit. So obviously you'll be on mute, but just a little test. On the top right, you'll see a chat button. Please just try access that and just say hello. And that's just really to get you warmed up to where that is, but also I kind of would like to encourage you to just, anything that pops in your head, any thoughts, submit a chat message to us in there. And next to that, on the right, you have a question box. So Joseph, well done. Hello. You've done that. Hopefully, a few more of you will find that. Joseph, you win the award so far for being able to do it. Hopefully, a few more of you will find that. After the presentation, you'll receive a copy of these slides for your perusal and a couple of key links in there that we have at the end to help you. So about IT governance, we provide end-to-end support, predominantly for things like consultancy, implementation, achievement certificates for certification for 27001, improving a company's cybersecurity posture. We provide training and consultancy to support that, as well as toolkits, policy templates, etc. We are essentially the global leaders, or one of the global leaders in cybersecurity and information security itself, and we're the first to support a company and get them to achieve their certification. And that was kind of the baseline for the company being born. We operate right across the globe and essentially have all of the kind of tools and products you might need or require to do well in your role. So like I said, we cover cybersecurity. We also specialize in data protection, in 27001 and in risk management, all key aspects of maintaining a good cybersecurity posture. It can get complicated. And in terms of your own personal development, you might wonder which direction to travel in. You might be strong in one of these areas already. This is a great slide just to kind of give you an idea of 4 key pillars where you could, develop yourself through qualifications or practical experience. Okay, let's kick on to the agenda. So like I said, we're going to talk about your career growth, key certifications, management roles, the types of roles and teams you might get involved in, frameworks, and some pathways that you might take for your own personal learning journey. So on the pathway aspect, it's never really fully linear. Your starting point might be of low experience or high experience. It might be really thoroughly qualified in lots of different areas already. So as an offer, you have Soji, Nikolai, and my time today. So again, pop a question in or chat, or I'll drop my email in later. And if you'd like some one-to-one time, that will be fine. We'll try and work that in and around our diaries, and you can have some one-on-one time with one of us, whoever you think is best suited. Okay, let's get into it. What we're going to do to kick off is just understand from the audience your kind of where you are. So how much cybersecurity experience do you have? So you might be early in your journey, you might be 10 years plus. So you have a survey which is up now. Thank you, Trudy. And if you could all select where you are. A few more to go. Well done. A couple more to go. We'll assume you kind of maybe engrossed in something else. So there we go. So good array. We've got some baseline, early adopters, and we have two of you 10 years plus, so some very good experience. So it might be good to hear from you and where you are later on. Next up is what kind of training or certifications do you have? So obviously you could select no formal training yet. If you're early in your career, you might have CISM at number 2. So if you can select that for us, you might have none of the above. So if you want to let us know in the chat, we can adapt um, some of the conversations we'll have around that. Quite a few have got the Cyber Foundation practitioner, actually. It's interesting. And a few of you got CISP. Very, very well done. That's a difficult one to get, and quite a few with no formal training yet. So good. Thank you for that. And next one up, what might you be pursuing next? If you don't know, obviously don't participate in the poll. You stick the poll up, Trudy. Similar to what we've had already. For those of you who've done CISP, you might not have an option there which is suitable, so we can talk about that in a minute. There's plenty more you can do beyond CISP, including CCSP, the kind of new cloud standard, which has recently come out. Good. And a few of you have got looking to do CH, so that's interesting. Well done. Thank you. All right, let's get the conversation going. So, cybersecurity is not an option; it's a necessity. Why is that, Soji?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andy, for the opportunity to speak to this. Now, one of the reasons why we said cybersecurity is not an option is because we all have one form of technology or the other that we use. And so we have telephones, we have um, our TVs or smart TVs, you have your smart cars, you have your smart homes, you have your smart devices, you have your computers. Your organization has all of this, technology, and that's the protection of these technology, necessitates that cybersecurity, even if it is an entry level, it necessitates that you understand cybersecurity, the protection of information assets. The For organizations, when it comes to the protection of the organization's reputation, the controls you put in place are very important because, for example, if I want to buy something from a company and the company is going to be processing my data, I need to know that they have the right controls in place to protect my data. That would engender trust and help the reputation of that company in the marketplace. And that would even help them to capture the market, more of the market. If I know that a company has a control in place to, you know, to align to the Data Protection Act of UK or the GDPR of Europe, of the European Union, or the DORA requirements for
Yeah.
European Union. What it does is that it engenders trust and improves the reputation of that company. So these are the reasons and all of the other reasons listed here why it is very important that we understand cybersecurity for organizations and for individuals, and also the benefits that would accrue to an individual who understands cybersecurity now or in the future. So yeah, so I'd like to stop there so I can allow my other colleagues to speak to
Sure.
these.
Thank you, Soji.
Yeah, thank you,
Nikolai?
Soji. Yes, well, Soji covered it quite well. And we can see on the screen that we're talking about protection of assets, reputation and trust that are quite important, the legal regulatory aspects in this area. And we actually looking at also the SolarWinds incident, that cybersecurity incident, right, breach, which showcases the importance. of cybersecurity and information security, and that even the staff members on senior level can be taken to court and then
Yeah,
held responsible. So it's very,
more and
very
more so
important.
nowadays. Yeah, and it'd be interesting for those on the webinar. Maybe just let us know through the chat if you're of that kind of level in your role. You know, the owner or the senior leader in these aspects can be accountable legally in the same way health and safety has been treated, you know, as a legal kind of requirement in the past. So do let us know. Do try to participate if you can, please, everyone. In terms of trying to summarize here, though, the impact of let's say doing nothing in a business can be um, on a spectrum to a fine, which might be acceptable, to catastrophic failure of the business. And we have seen in the last 12 months alone a good number of companies, for example, going into administration because of the impact of the fines and the reputational damage from a breach.
Yeah.
In particular, in industries where, or an economy where the finances, purse strings are really tight, cash is really challenged. It's been an interesting time. It gets ever more interesting, but we won't go into that at an economic level. So it's really important around trust, gaining a competitive advantage. Really can center around having a badge of honor, right? And that badge of honor
Yeah.
is usually what, 27,001 certification?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So if you are especially kind of government funded contracting or contracting with partners across the globe, they will look for the 27,001 certification as a reference point of someone else certifying that you're doing enough or doing something for information security compliance. And I guess the landscape isn't getting any easier, is it? So the legal and compliance kind of aspect, but just regulatory frameworks coming at us left, right, and centre. AI Act, EU AI Act. We have DORA. We have GDPR, which will move on to the new act that is going through Parliament. So I've got someone with their hands up. I don't know if we can bring you in on mute, but if you send us a message in the chat, please, Frank, and then we'll be able to kick on there. So before I move on, I have a good question from Joseph. Well done. We talked about accountability here at kind of top level. I manage our cybersecurity, but ultimately it would be the president who signs off on my work. Who would be held accountable? I think that's a good question. Leads into some of the roles we looked at before. Who would like to take that?
Let me just quickly speak to that. The question is the manager of cybersecurity, but ultimately it will be the president who signs up on my work who would be held accountable. Now, I'm going to look at it from two perspectives. Now, from the perspective, the first perspective is going to be from the perspective of best practices. Now, considering what we or what some of us may know, looking at the RACI matrix, where you have who is responsible, who is accountable. Now, best practices says that the person who is going to be accountable for what you do would be your line manager, the person you report to. Now, let me presume that the person you report to would be the CEO. So for you being the cybersecurity manager, whatever thing you do, the person who is going to be accountable would be the person you report to. So That's going to be your line manager, let's say the CEO. Now you are going to be responsible because you get the job done. But the person who is going to be accountable would be the one who makes sure that you get the job done. Your CEO, he has overall accountability for cybersecurity, for example, within the company, in addition to some other functions. Now, that is the best practices perspective. Now, but if we look at the reward perspective, we know this is very different. Now, for example, if you look at the solar wind issue, now the question is, solar wind was breached. Some of us may know that breach, which was called the sunburst, attack. Now, but look at what happened. The solar wind CISO was taken to court by the Security and Exchange Commission of the United States. Now, the question that stemmed from that from that event was, why was the CISO taken to court when it is that everything that the CISO does was approved by the CEO? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the CISO report to the CEO. So, that was the question in the minds of security professionals in the security community. Now, the answer to that is, I'm gonna be frank with you. I don't have the answer to that, but this is what I know. The court eventually threw out the case. The court threw out the case. The court says that the Security and Exchange Commission does not have enough ground to be able to take the CISO to court. And that makes a lot of sense because the CISO doesn't and never did anything by himself. Everything he did, he got permission from, say, maybe the CEO and the board of directors. So that's what you see in the real world, and those are the two perspectives. I don't know if I was able to respond to your question, because in the real world, it's a different ballgame entirely. And we also saw such a situation in the case of the Uber CISO that was taken to court. Now, but I don't have the full details about the Uber CISO, but we're beginning to see such situation, but the court will be the one to decide. Now, if the court were to follow best practices, the court is going to throw it out because the CISO cannot be held accountable. He has someone who reports to, he reports to the CEO and the board of directors. So those are the people we're going to hold accountable. So I'd like to pause here. I hope I was able to do justice to that question.
Yeah, I think Joseph has said thank you. It helps. I think obviously the biggest risk is the company fine and reputational damage. They can be immediate. They don't require a court case. It can be presented in the media or social media for a breach, and then trust can decline. So those are the things to worry about more so, in my experience. So let's segue into we have a global challenge with cybersecurity. We have increasing regulation, increasing risks, increasing fines, and the fact is that skilled individuals to help tackle the challenge are not keeping pace with the demand globally. So it is a great time to develop your careers, and we'll look at some typical roles shortly. But most teams, so 60% of teams are currently understaffed. Some of that might be due to budget constraints, but some of that is due to recruitment challenges to recruit individuals who have the qualifications and/or experience. And what we are seeing is much more speedy self-development, internal development, people being allocated responsibility, whether they like it or not. And it's important to kind of understand how to do your role best, whether you've chosen to do it or you've been allocated to do it. And again, we'll talk more to that shortly. 80% broadly say demand for technical cybersecurity individual contributors will increase in the next year. What do they mean by technical cybersecurity, Soji, do you think? We're talking
Yeah. So speaking to technical cybersecurity skill, it's speaking to your ability to be able to get things done.
Yeah,
So it's talking about the technical skill, the know-how. Now it's talking about your being able to translate what you know, which is what we may call tacit knowledge, into, you know, being able to apply it. Now, and, and let me speak to that a little bit. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that there's no skills gap. You will see that debate,
yeah,
everywhere on social media and all of that. But if you look at it closely, there's actually a skills gap. There is. Now, the question is, what when I get into such conversation with people, the question I ask is, what is the difference between skill and knowledge? There's a very big difference between skills and knowledge. Knowledge is you understand. Now, you may know something, but you may not be able, being knowledgeable means you're aware. Now, you may be aware of something, you may know something, and you may not be able to translate it into, practical
yeah,
skills. Now, and that's where the challenge is. Now, a lot of organizations are saying, yeah, we have a lot of people who have certifications. We have people who have MSCs. We know there are a lot of them out there. But the challenge we're having is a lot of these people cannot translate what they know into doing. They can't implement it. They can't apply it because applying it requires critical thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? It requires critical thinking. It requires you to be able to extrapolate, to be able to look into the future, to be able to analyze, to be able to tear things apart, to be able to like predict what is likely to happen, then prefer solution. That is what critical analysis is. So organizations are looking for who can translate what they know into what they can do,
yeah.
and that's where the technical skill is, and that's
Okay,
what technical skill is all about.
so in that case, kind of, because when I read technical, I kind of think pen testing, um, technical role, more IT technical, let's say, or knowledgeable, rather than application in your sense that you've just talked to there.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so that's helpful to kind of, because that can feel a little bit scary.
Yeah, maybe I can bring very quick clarity from my perspective. Um, there are GRC skills like governance, risk, and compliance, and then you have the cybersecurity skills that are more
Yeah,
technical, more technology-oriented skills, right? So quite often people substitute one with the other, but they're not the same thing. So in this case, perhaps it's about cybersecurity, right, in terms of technicality and technologies in comparison to governance, risk, and compliance type of skills that demand different types of knowledge and practice, right? So maybe that's what the technical cybersecurity is in this case, from my perspective.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I wrote a paper not too long ago, and really it took from all of the kind of global papers, and for everyone on the webinar, regardless of your starting point, moving in cybersecurity um, can feel daunting, but actually the industry is after, and we do talk to this later on. Good leadership skills, which you might already demonstrate really well. It needs some good commercial skills. It needs a level of obviously intellectual ability to maybe understand a regulation or how to do things. But you don't need to be the specialist of IT or the applications or whatnot. You just need to be kind of have some good baseline characteristics. I'm just going to
absolutely.
segue sideways into a question we got here from David. Thank you, David. It's a good question. I don't know who will answer it. I feel like I have an answer for it, but it may not be correct. So don't hold us to this. Is the situation with tariffs in the USA affecting hiring in cybersecurity roles, i.e., reducing jobs? Are businesses holding back hiring in these roles due to uncertainty in the markets? Um, I'll start us off briefly, and then Soji and Nikolai can correct me. I think the impact of tariffs will be industry or product specific. They'll all the companies will be impacted in different ways. However, U.S. companies themselves are feeling the brunt of the tariffs, in particular, and as a result, they may have less money to spend, and therefore might decide to take greater risks by way of um, putting less emphasis on cybersecurity. And it really will be dependent on the type of industry they're in and the risk associated with the company. Um, One aspect to consider here is that the fact that the cyber skills gap is growing. That I mean, if you're based in the US, fair enough, but there are plenty of roles
Absolutely.
in this industry. That's right. And whereas we train so many people every year, and we see people going on to really good, well-paid roles. And we have that challenge within our own business, with our own people having the specialisms they have being kind of taken from us because they're so experienced, and they get paid some big bucks. Um, have I gone some way, Sergi and Nikolai, to answer that, or would you like to correct me or enhance that?
I agree with you. Yeah, there will be short-term implications, but long-term, that's not going to affect us as such because information security in the big way, if I would say, it's digital, and and this precautions are more to physical goods from the US side. Yeah, as long as the interest rates go down and they bring some labor back in house, they'll
Yeah,
be fine.
they'll
Yeah, it's not
definitely
going
go
to be
down.
long term. Yeah.
That was the primary objective, from what I understand. It would be interesting to hear, by the way. Sorry, Sergi, we'll come to the set from those of you maybe have a view on this. We've got some very experienced people on this webinar. If you have a view, please do let us know in the chat. Soji, your views?
So to add to what you said and what Nikolai have said, what I think would happen is the organizations may not, it's going to slow down the hiring of cybersecurity professionals. Like Nikolai said, in the meantime, there's gonna be a temporary impact. But I think that the workaround for that for organization is that they may begin to look for cybersecurity professionals with multiple skills. So rather
Mm,
than have you know someone who would focus on network security, they may look for somebody who can do both network security and cloud security. So because that would help them to reduce their cost, or the total cost of ownership, for an individual, and as well as being able to leverage the expertise of, or being able to leverage those expertise. So what I'm trying to say is, rather than stop the hiring or, not hire, yeah, they may not hire as many people as they need to. Rather than hire someone to focus on network security or on cloud security, or those other specialization, they may begin to look for people in the meantime who have general who have general skills or skills that cuts across multiple areas. Those are the people they may leverage on. But like Nikolai said, in the long run, they would have to go back to that strategy of having to employ the number of people. I'll give an example. So last year, there was a publication from Zscaler. Zscaler is a very big cybersecurity company. And Zscaler said there was a company that paid as much as $75 million for ransomware. They paid $75 million ransomware. Now think about it. A company like that would not want to, even if there's the tariff and all of that, they wouldn't want to go through that again, because $75 million is a lot of money. So they may want to, they still would want to hire people, but they may just want to hire people with general skills or people with multiple skills. But that would not stop hiring totally. And for the smaller businesses also, they may want to do the same thing, except for the big companies that still have a lot of money, like maybe the likes of the JP Morgans or HSBC, who have lots of money. They may stick to that recruitment strategy where they have specialized people for specialized roles. So that's my
Yeah,
perspective.
it wouldn't be
Well,
surprising that they get people to do more work,
Yeah,
as we all do. Sorry, Nicola, I interrupted you there.
I just wanted to say that what the idea is, the stock markets will fall a bit. Lots of companies will get scared, they'll let people go, and then the stock markets will start rallying after the interest rates and the money printing starts, gets back to normal. So it's not going to be long term. As soon as the stock markets goes up, there will be plenty of opportunities. Now there is a bit of a fear around the world, and it's normal. It's all about the fear that we're experiencing, and that's going
Yeah,
to be insignificant
yeah,
in the time frame that
and
we are actually going to see next a
yeah.
big.
Sorry, Nicola. The lack of uncertainty. You said fear, but the lack of
Mhm.
uncertainty. The uncertainty out there as well.
yeah,
So I think what we have seen in the past before this level of turbulence, because we've seen COVID turbulence and other aspects and impactors out there, is it is a great time for developing, because companies will look to maybe upskill internally rather than employ and recruit externally. So, especially in the smaller to medium companies, maybe less so in the larger companies. Um, but it is a great time if you're in a company to maybe put yourself forward, especially for those early adopters. That those early in your careers or haven't started yet. Um, Gaining experience can be difficult. Well, now is a good time to kind of put yourself forward. So, um,
absolutely.
Yeah, to
I've
be
got,
ready for the moment.
got a view from Frank. Some companies are keeping their hiring on for some roles on hold. Yeah. So maybe aligned to what you said there, Nikolai, some short-term
Mhm,
holding, seeing what the markets do.
mhm.
Thanks for that, Frank. I appreciate that.
Yeah, in the
Right, let's
UK
move on to
economy, well,
try keep on time. We talked about skills before, um, and we talked about kind of your kind of direct kind of technical skills and maybe soft skills. So, Nikolai, do you want to talk to us about what companies are typically prioritizing or looking for?
yeah, this is a quick rundown on the top skills that you see on the screen, right? So
Yeah.
employees are, uh, this is what employers are looking for when they're hiring the cybersecurity pros. So for technical skills, we have identity and access management, but also cloud computing, right? They're leading the
Absolutely.
pack, as you can see by the percentage of interest. Then we have strong skills in data protection, incident response, right? They're also highly sought after. Yeah, and the last one we have the DevOps. It's another key area of focus that it's worth considering. Although now with the AI, we need to think about how much we want to invest in this area.
Mm.
But on the soft skill side, being a good communicator, maybe a strong critical thinker, and effective problem
Yeah,
solver are quite essential now, because we're looking at teamwork, attention to detail that are highly valued. Because when you have this mix of knowing your tech and especially around access, cloud, and data, and being ready to handle attacks and having the crucial people skills to work effectively with others could contribute big time to your career development, and you'll be extremely successful, because those are the hot topics now.
yeah,
And this is this is a way to of thinking, a way of growing and evolving to be able to be successful in your career progress.
absolutely. That was spot on. Absolutely
No, thank
correct.
And in terms of, if we're looking at that top row, for those who are starting out that career, which is the easiest kind of aspect to maybe get into and master a little bit to start with, which is most essential. Let's say if we put it in the context of a small to medium business. Happy for the audience to chat, by the way. Frank, David, Joseph, you've all kind of had stuff to say. If any of you have a view on this, let us know. I do. So, Nikolai, which would you say is the best starting point?
So, if I were to start, I would I would start with identity and access management, and that's because even in the even in the physical world, we have different, controls that we put in place to control access to our environment. So, identity and access management has always been considered as a first line of defense. So that's
Yeah,
why you have doors at your house. That's why you have
yeah,
gates. That's why you have fences to control who can, to ward off intruders. Also, in the world of technology, um, identity and access management mechanisms, controls are very important to push off, or to ward off, unauthorized intruders or people who wants to get into your network. So identity and access management is very important. And I really, really agree with what has been, with the top five skills that has been stated here, especially from mentioning identity and access management. I've seen a lot in adverts online, organizations looking for identity and access management architects,
oh yeah,
people who can, yeah, so people who can manage privilege access, design identity and access management, even for the cloud environment, even for data, even for incident response, even for DevOps, all of these other, skills,
yeah,
you require identity and access management. You need to control access to your cloud environment. You need to control access to data. You need to control access. You need to, incident means that, somebody has, gotten unauthorized access to your infrastructure. So what do you seek to do? You want to push them out and put the right barrier, put the right controls in place to continue to, ensure that they remain outside of your environment. Even in DevOps, the DevOps pipeline, which we refer to as the DevOps process for creating software, there are identity and access management controls in place. So it's a very, very important, skill, for anyone in cybersecurity to have.
Nikolai, would you agree with that?
Yes, I'm kind of split on between cloud computing and identity and access management because I would say it's extremely spot on and important right now, as what Soji said, in the current landscape and the technological development. But in the future, probably cloud computing will take slightly over because um, if not almost technology will be on the cloud, if not already they are. I
Mm.
know that AI technologies are now looking for local presence. So especially now with DeepSeek, we quite easily going to find localized AIs within phones and drones and whatever else. But cloud computing will be predominant technology that will demand attention in
Yeah,
the future.
yeah. And I think one thing that might be with getting across is that really all of these areas are pretty important across your business. We have
Mm.
Frank who threw in his uh, view on data protection, and again, it's a difficult one to kind of say. Is it is it the most important one? It maybe depends where you are in the world, but certainly if you don't tie in the other aspects of data protection, um, then you're at risk of the fines, and there's so much involved
Mm.
above and beyond identity and access management that it's kind of a huge category in its own right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
one aspect that I think might do well to summarize all of this is 27001 knowledge. You don't
Yes.
have to apply the full certification, but it gives you the controls which should cover all of these aspects
Yes.
um, within the framework. So um, I think, Frank, I'm kind of siding with you. I don't have any other views just coming through yet, but so we'll leave that one to be debated forever and more. Um, just highlighting on the soft skills. Again, we're building a whole new community of cyber specialists, and they're not necessarily from IT backgrounds as might be 25 years ago. They do need leaders. They do need critical thinking, um, the ability to learn, obviously, and attention to detail in terms of like regulatory compliance. Being able to get into that is a real skill. So if you feel you've got some or all of those, then it should support a career once you get into the specific learning. So, what are the rewards of a career in cyber security? Loads of money, you think? Well, it's certainly a good career to follow for compensation, isn't it? So, we're seeing a highly competitive um, marketplace for it's in the benefit of the individual rather than companies more so. Whereas obviously if you're 100 people fighting for one job, you have less kind of power there. So we have certainly seen that across um, the people we've looked after and supported in their careers, but we see that kind of reported through by some of the major awarding bodies you see up there, SACRA and ISC Squared, EC Council. There's a direct correlation between certs and experience and receiving larger compensation. But it's not the only reward, is it? What else can we talk to you about the rewards there, Soji?
So, from my perspective, there's something I always say that if you are in cybersecurity, you would always have something to do. You may not be a multi-billionaire, you may not be a multi-millionaire, but I believe that for the rest of your life, you would have something to cater for yourself, to take care of
Yeah,
yourself. And the reason is because as long as, now, what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is, if I were to break it down, keep it really simple. So what I'm trying to say is that you would always talk about cybersecurity wherever you have hardware and software. Anywhere there's software and hardware, there's always going to be a need for a cybersecurity professional. Think about it. Hardware and software is everywhere. So, for example, I'm going to start from the controversial artificial intelligence that a lot of people are afraid is going to take over their job. Now, what I said to people is artificial intelligence itself is made up of hardware and software. These are servers that are sitting in some data center somewhere, and you have software running on them. Now, this software and hardware would need protection. Who is going to protect them? It's going to be cybersecurity professionals. So what you need to do is just have the right skill for you to be able to work in that environment. Now, there's also going to be, now a lot of economies across the globe are growing. So for example, in Africa, for example, a lot of African economies are growing. So that means that you're going to have critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is going to develop. So what is critical infrastructure? These are infrastructure that are necessary for the prosperity of
yeah,
the economy of a country. So you're talking about energy, you're talking about financial capability, you're talking about aerospace, you're talking about transport,
yeah.
you're talking about medical. All of
Medical.
these, they use hardware and software. Now, behind, for example, in the manufacturing sector, you have SCADA system. Behind the SCADA system are computers and software. Who is going to manage the security of those? A cybersecurity professional. So to keep it really simple and not to keep it really short, you would always have something to do. Just make sure that you hone the right skill.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Soji. Frank's put career growth forward. I agree with that, and I think career security. I do think some of the kind of roles, certainly that I've had in the past, have been a little bit, like retail, sort of government funded kind of stuff can be a little bit up and down. But this is a kind of industry which isn't going to burn out or disappear any time, probably this century. Um, um, yeah, and dynamic environment. Yeah, thanks, Frank. I think there is. These things can be challenging, therefore rewarding.
Yeah.
You get to if you learn and develop and grow, and there is no end to where you can grow, unless you're obviously
Yeah.
Soji, who's qualified in everything that exists on cybersecurity on the planet. Okay, just conscious of time, and we have around 8 minutes max. So, what is a cybersecurity manager? So we have managers and directors. Soji,
So, can you repeat the question again? I was a little bit distracted.
that's all right. You're distracted by my good conversation, I guess. So, what is a cybersecurity manager? So, there are varying kind of shapes and forms of a cybersecurity leader with varying kind of skills. Can you talk to the kind of roles we're seeing here and the kind of difference between a manager and a director?
Okay, so yeah, so a manager, a cybersecurity manager, for example. Now, you can look at it from two perspectives. Now, the cybersecurity manager is, you can use it generically to describe anyone who manages cybersecurity. Now,
Yeah.
but if you want to be specific in terms of role, you could refer to the cybersecurity manager as someone who, manages cybersecurity operations on a date, so which is
Okay.
the IT security operations on a day-to-day basis. Now, for a security director, such if you anyone who is sitting in such a role is going to be looking at cybersecurity from a strategic perspective. So
Mm.
that person is going to be more involved in, say, maybe ensuring that cybersecurity initiatives align with business initiatives. So they are going to be looking at, they would have to understand where the business is headed and ensure that cybersecurity is in alignment with the direction that the business is headed, to ensure that cybersecurity helps the business to achieve its goals and objective from a more strategic perspective. So that is what an IT security director would be. Relative to a cybersecurity manager, a CISO could also be that. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. Nikolai,
Yeah,
anything you'd like to add?
yeah, not much. Yeah, we have two options here: managers and directors in CISO, right? So CISO is the next level up from manager, and yeah, the difference here is that you need to be able to make decisions as a director or CISO, set policies for your team, choose the right tools and suppliers. So you need the broader understanding of how the business operates and what are the business priorities, right? So at this level, cybersecurity isn't just technical function anymore, as it would be under the managerial box. It has a seat at the table with the organization's top decision makers. So
Absolutely.
yeah, the cybersecurity manager is critical link, right? That makes the high-level strategies and translates them into actionable plans
Yeah,
of the teams.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
I think
if
it's worth noting
I have
that
to continue, I have to repeat Soji. Yes,
no, no.
you
There,
cover it
there
quite.
are so many different cybersecurity roles that we
Mhm.
would fill like 120 slides. I'm sure some of those can be specialists, like Soji said. Once you get into your bigger organisations, they can maybe split out and have sole focus kind of roles or specialist roles. Um, you can have some roles which one person is expected to maybe know that, or shared roles across a number of senior leaders, where it's part of your role but not your job title.
Yes.
So it can be really interested. And I think the difference between a manager and a director, gaining budget approval is probably one of the biggest challenges, to convince a business to invest in doing enough to mitigate the risk that's ahead of them. Now, I just want, let's move on. I thought I had another question there, but I don't. So the three elements to building a career. I won't spend too long on this, but you can obviously get a qualification. You might already have. Got a few people on the call with CISP. Consider your budget. It's a fresh budget year. Now is the time to try get some of that for your personal development. Make a proposal to your manager. And in terms of experience, again, I mentioned before how now more than ever you will have an opportunity to gain some experience, whereas previously you may not. So senior leaders are keen for people to take up some of the work and do more work, but it is a good way to segue and kind of put a little toe into the water, so to speak. And in terms of knowledge, we've got a few examples in a bit, but most instructors, when you take your qualifications, will direct you to staying on top of industry feeds, industry news. It helps you understand the lingo, the terminology. It helps you understand the real world risks, and in many cases, some of the solutions that might appear. And some of the qualifications can get you into peer groups, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'm running out of time. I didn't think we'd run this far over, but that's fine. So on that note, I will kick on. Useful resources like these that you see here. So Institute links, you can access our own cybersecurity resources. These are just examples, by the way. There are plenty more out there. Now, the links to these will be on the slide deck when you get them. And just to summarize and to wrap up with the 2 minutes we have left, these are your typical globally recognized, but not only qualifications. These are the most sought after, most recognized, and without going into each of these, you can go down a kind of audit route or a management route. The typical management route would be something like this. So for those of you early in your career, you can take a foundational kind of course, look at something like CISMP, which is a great foundational course. And then you can kick on to these certs at the top: CISM, CISP, and more recently the Cloud Security Professional. I noted we had a few CISP certified individuals on the call, so well done to you. You'll know how hard it is to get through that. It's a real challenge. But I've got some of the books here, but I won't grab one for time purposes. But kicking on to cloud can be a very important step to take. And it's never quite linear like that. You can jump around and you can learn other aspects, GDPR regulation. You can kick into business continuity and go a little bit deeper into that area, or into risk management. And with 25 seconds left to go, I've left no room for questions, but I am going to wait, because we can run over slightly if we need to. I don't have any new questions there. So in the lack of, unless one comes through, thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I hope you found it useful. We will drop my email into the chat now. If you want to chat to any of us around your career or your company, drop me an email. And Trudy will also get it out. Thank you everyone ever so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day and weekend when you get there.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.